Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM. Connecting Highline and our region. Share your story. Our Highline Voices, history, cultural heritage, art, performances, contemporary, pop culture. We are very motivated to provide a vibrant community museum and authentic social gathering place. It truly takes a village to raise a museum. Despite the challenges, our daily inspiration is our eagerness to build a stronger and more connected community. This museum is from the community to the community. Our passion is for our visitors to have access to a broad spectrum of information sources and cultural perspectives. Our Highline Voices.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nancy. I'm the director of the Highline Heritage Museum, and thank you so much for coming tonight again. We have a very special guest with us tonight, and I'm really looking forward for him to introduce himself and for us to be able to learn more about who he is and then his light and beautiful magic that he offers to our community. And so thank you. Thank you for allowing us to do this with you, this conversation with each other. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Yes, well, thank you. My name is Gayllord Sisson. Everybody knows me by Gayllord Sisson, even though my first name is Joseph. I have never been called Joseph until I wrote my book, Down the Road a Piece. And my editor suggested, since the protagonist is Gayllord, me, that I should publish the book by my first name. So it's Joseph G. Sisson, Down the Road a Piece. I am a citizen of Burien. I also am on the Burien Arts Commission that we meet once a month. And I highly recommend that everybody in Burien should at least watch what we do because it's all public. And I'm also co-chairperson for the African American Writers Alliance. And we are African Americans, primarily here in Seattle, but now we have an office in Amsterdam, also in Ethiopia, and we're looking forward to the opportunity of connecting with some other writers in Brazil, all Black people, put it that way. What else should I tell you about me? I highly recommend that you read my book because then you learn about all 5 of my siblings, although they're all younger than me at that time, and I was 13 when that story begins. And it's only a 6-week event of traveling from the West Coast, living idealistic life. In the 50s, you would never expect to find communities like ours that were integrated, but ours was. And being a child, I accepted or I took for granted that that's the way life was throughout the world. And it was in 1957 that my parents wanted us to meet our relatives. Through thrills and excitement, my brothers and I got ready and got in the car and drove off to visit our cousins in the Deep South, a place where we knew nothing about.
And then also, if people are more curious about the whole story, the books are here in the museum and then other locations as well. So you can come and buy the books and actually learn more about this very, very it is just a powerful story, and I do recommend people to come and see and read it and appreciate it, that he is a member in the Highline community area. And so this is great. He is more than what he's saying at this moment. I know that he has a lot more other projects that he's been developing, but one of them that just learned a few seconds ago is that you're a veteran. And so you want to share a little bit more about that?
Oh, yes, I'm a veteran. And I will be, just a minute, let me double check the location on my phone.
Well, he's checking the location on his phone. The way I met him was right when we opened the museum. And one of the first things that he said was things in Spanish. So right away that got my attention, like, oh, he knows how to speak Spanish. And after that, it was just how welcoming and how warm and just a big smile that he carries on. And so right away, it made me feel that that's what community is about. It's just the idea of collaborating and get to know each other. And even if it's not like going deeply into the stories, but just a smile alone. And he was one of those opportunities that I saw that he just welcoming and warm. And so ever since then, there's been several times that we've done something, or you participated in 7 stories, or you're going to be participating in this for the month of October. And so I'm more than excited to talk to you about also you were sharing with me a few minutes ago about your trips and how you compare different cultures into it. Also the your role on the African American Writers Alliance, and it's just the idea of maybe, hopefully, I'm not going to try to push him in online and do this, but hopefully the group will be interested in sharing something and then being able to, for everyone else to hear more about the work that they do, but also the actual pieces that they write. And some of them are powerful, and I'm just so glad that we had the opportunity to get to know them here. Okay, now you take back the microphone.
Primero, sí, yo hablo español porque vivió en San Diego, cerca de Mexico, y casi toda la gente hablan Spanglish, actually, that. Yeah. And por ejemplo, mi amigo dice, vamos a la store, okay? That's Spanglish. So anyway, people here in Burien primarily speak English, and I have a lot of friends who are Spanish speaking. But we end up speaking both languages at the same time, which is so interesting. I think we're coming up with a new language.
Yeah. This morning I had a group. I was having 2 meetings at once, one in Spanish, one in English. It's like got one person in one language and then another in a different language. It got to the point where I was truly Spanglish. I was talking to it was all mixed, and I was like, I had to tell everyone, like, okay, I think you already know I'm dealing with my Spanglish brain right at this second. So no, it is frequently. So tell me a little bit more about you and what you were going to share with us.
Yes, November 11th at the Museum of Flight, they're having an event all day long, and I'm going to be one of the speakers. I'll be speaking for 15 minutes about my experience and my family experience as veterans. I'm bringing a document that demonstrates and a photograph of a great-great-grandfather that fought in the Revolutionary War. And someone in my family from then all the way until my nephews have been, and my son, have been in the military to protect a country that we love so much. Highly recommend that you come to the museum and participate in all the events there, and especially come and hear what I have to say there. You see, I'm a co-chairperson, that is, of the African American Writers Alliance. And we help African Americans, particularly in writing, as well as publishing their work. And we feel that not only African Americans, but everybody has a story to write about. I do belong to other writing groups where we do help people other than African Americans with their writing. So if you are interested, leave your name here at the museum and I'll get a hold of you and contact you and give you some input on where you could go to get assistance with your writing. Let me see. I wanted to talk about writing. Writing is really dear to me. People are very important to me too. And I like to go, I'm a high touch person, which means that I prefer to meet you in person than to meet you on Zoom. But since COVID, we all know those stories.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And you know, I like it because people who have, again, disabilities or have issues with transportation or for whatever factor, the idea to connect each other. And then not just here locally, but even globally. And so it's something that is really, really cool in that area. But the downside of it is that when we have the opportunity to connect each other in person, obviously, I can, the first thing, can we hug each other? Yes, let's hug each other. We cannot do that via Zoom. Can we actually connect and feel energies? And it just, it's a different experience, being able to connect it like this, look at each other's eyes versus something that on a screen that I don't know if we can really see that. And so, no, I appreciate that we are doing this in person. And I'm glad that, yes, some of your work is still also at the museum front, on the museum store. He not only has his books, but also his writings, and he has participated with us in the past with one of the exhibits. It was a Black Lives Matter exhibit in American history, and he had one of the cases in downtown Burien. There was beautiful graphics with that, and we also included a QR code so people can actually hear your voice when you were actually, expressing yourself. I do believe that writings is just either through an exhibit or through a book or through any other format. It's a way to how we express and let people know who we are.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that you are open enough to let us see you, open enough to enjoy. That's what I meant by magic, because it's not just individually a one-on-one relationship. It's more about how he is connected with the community and the work that he does, including being part of the Burien Arts Commission. Mm-hmm. And so it's a service that he's providing to all of us in here. And so the idea of how he wants to connect with you. And so now he's doing it through radio. And so, yay,
That's one of the things I'm going to do tomorrow, in fact, at 7 Stories, mm-hmm. is I'm a traveler, I should tell you that. My goal in life, mine and my wife's, that is, and her name is Kathleen. Kathleen. I even get choked up on saying my own wife's name. And we've been married for 36 years. Anyway, our goal is to find at least one country on every continent and visit it. And we're doing pretty good. So the last 2 places we have been is East Africa, Stone Town in particular, and Scandinavia, and all 3 countries in Scandinavia. I am going to talk about what similarities our cultures have. It's very interesting, such as those in Scandinavia and those people in Ethiopia in particular, who are still living the traditional way of living that they have been living for 20,000 years or so. As well as the ones in Scandinavia, those people are indigenous to that area too. And I'm going to be talking about what similarities these 2 cultures have. One, we know because we emulate what's going on with the people in Scandinavia and Europe, is the type of clothing that we wear. Yet when we go to some of the indigenous areas in Africa where they wear no clothing, I was one of them who thought, wow, I'm so much better because I have clothes on. No. These people have been living there for thousands of years. The temperature averages 80, 85 degrees, and it's part of their culture. Why should they put on clothes and get warmer? It makes no sense. Yet in Why should they take their clothes off when the dead of winter, if the winds are blowing through their homes, especially if you think about the early primitive housing that they used to have. Air would go through and they would use all kinds of methods to block the air, but they had to put clothes on. my wife and I, we study anthropology. And so tomorrow at the seventh story, some of the information or some of the things that I know or learned from our studies, I will bring out in my talk there. So I invite you, definitely come tomorrow and hear some of the things, not only myself, but the other 6 storytellers. We all are unique and we all have unique stories.
Yes. That's what I love about that project is that the ability for everyone to share a story, the ability to get to know each other and to see how different we are, but then how similar we are at the same time. I truly believe that we got way more things in common than differences in the bigger picture. And we are humans and we do want the same things and we we feel the pain and the joy and the hunger and the sleepy and the tiredness and the happy and excitement. And so there's way more things that unite us than divide us. And so the idea of you bringing those elements into comparing the 2 cultures, and we also talking about regional, like the Nordic countries, there are 5 of them. And then you mentioned Ethiopia, but I do believe that it's more than that area. There is extensive regional, and that is a similar story as well. I do see a same with Latin American countries that, that there are some lines, geographical lines, but when you talk about the region, there's a lot of similarities with each other. And so we have the concept that on 7 stories, obviously everyone is allowed to share the story. I'm glad that you were able to bring it. But more about you.
Me.
Absolutely. I'm taking advantage of it today.
Okay.
And so it got my attention that you said that you go into anthropology with your wife, and
Yes.
then you do have different perspectives, even as a couple. You see things differently. And then I can imagine how fascinating those conversations are when it comes to anthropology and then really addressing the human elements and the stories, not the story so much, but more like the human elements of it. If I was not a museum curator, I would love to be a cultural anthropologist. That's like a cultural anthropologist. I just love the concept of the social structure and traditions and why do we do the work, or how do we express the way we do things, either through art or through politics. And I mean politics not necessarily in a governmental stamp, but more about how is a society moving or culture moving forward in a more organized way. I'm interested in the relationship with each other, like gender wise and then the age wise, and how people get treated differently because of the differences that we have within our society. And so, yes, obviously you mentioned that you went to this trip, that you're going to be talking about this topic. Why that interest on cultures and finding those threads that unified us while also addressing how unique and special we are, because we are different regardless, and highlighting those unique elements of each other. So for you, what is the part that brings you joy? What's the part that allows you to talk to your wife and then actually, I don't know if you debate. Do you debate with your wife?
Oh, definitely. We don't do very little do we do separately.
Okay.
But when we got married, well, I don't know where to start where we began, but it definitely began when we met and discovered that we had so much in common, and we had more in common before we had our love, because we had to get to know each other first.
Yeah.
And for those unmarried folks, I highly recommend that when you do get to know that other person, make sure that they're your friends, because I married my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I was questioning, not her, but just myself or the society I lived in, why men and women conflict. What is it about us? And I was walking through the park and I mentioned that to a stranger, a woman, and told her that I was interested in researching that question. And that just because I mentioned it to her made me focus on what it was that I wanted to do. Why do men and women sometimes, not sometimes, often enough, conflict. We see the same thing. And that led me to studying anthropology. There's so much to tell you. I'm trying to think of what I could say in a short period of time, such as, real quick. There's a book you must read. It's called Sapien. And I would have to have you check the library for the name of the author. Doesn't come to me right away. I could look in my phone, but I want to just tell you that this is a book that everyone should read. And I find it interesting too, that is, I just recently discovered this book and couldn't put it down. And then I told all my friends who said, "Oh yeah, I read that book. Oh yes, it's very, very enlightening." And I go, "Wow, what took me so long to learn about this book?" But it's something that everyone should read about who we are as sapiens, how we evolved, where it came from. And the book is so well written; it takes you straight through up to 2023 and beyond.
Wow.
And beyond. I mean, what he says is impossible to imagine what sapiens will look like, be like, act like in the future, beyond our imagination. Of course, when you think about the Neanderthals, it was beyond their imagination to see what we live now. They could never know about airplanes and cars. They were just worried about what stones to find so they could chip and catch animals. Another thing I learned as a student of anthropology, us human beings are very dangerous. When we lived in Africa, all the other animals knew how dangerous we were. And so they stayed away from us as much as they could. And because they did, we developed ways to catch them. We're using spears at first, and then bows and arrows. And then we left, some of us, the continent of Africa, to where animals never saw humans before. They were easy to catch, and we caught them, ate them, sometimes to extinction, including plants, all around the world. I mean, think of the mastodons. They didn't know who we were. These insignificant little animals running around with these sticks in their arms. What could they do to us? But they no longer exist because we ate them all. What a surprise to me. So that brings me to my next thought of reading. It's important you read everything. Of course, read things that entertain you, but read stuff that you can learn something new about.
Well, and one thing about reading is that there are people writing. And so it's not just the pages, it's not just the book, it's who are writing them. And then so like you have your book in the front area, and it's not about just the book. They have to associate it as a person behind it. It's a person that you're connecting with. It's a person that you have this dialogue and you're telling your story. You are storytelling them in that moment. And so this message that in Mexico is not that common as a mainstream to actually say I love books it's not that it's not integrated in the society as much to have books read. Why? There are many different reasons and factors as to why that is. It's a lot more about entertainment than actually because you want to learn more educational components. But one thing that I do tell people is that when they hold in a book, if you don't like the way they write, if they don't like the way they're talking to you, it's okay, because it's also you dealing with a human being. It's not like it's a machine created elements. It is actually you talking to a person, and we all have different styles of communicating. I'm sure a lot of you, I would drive you crazy if you had to listen to me every single day. And so I know that our communication styles are different, and you don't have to like books. All I'm trying to do is encourage people to read, but also keep in mind that we are dealing with people. And so it's just some people like, oh, yeah, I connect more with this story. I connect more with how they write, and I'm connecting more with it's just, I can feel the person next to me telling me this. Well, time is limited now. We got a few more minutes left already. But before we go, I want to make sure that we address any last minute comments that you want to add. I know that you're inviting us for 2 different events. They might be a bit late by the time they get to this interview, people, right. but at least one is him telling, you can see the recording on the 7 Stories site. And so you'll see that, and you can hear about his experience in comparing the different travel experience that he had in Scandinavia, and then in his African trip. And then we have the second component, which is November 11th, which is Veterans Day. And I think that's, I already respect you. I already admire you. Now with this, it is even more, because it gives a different element to who you are, and just brings more different clearer and new, like, whoa, I didn't know that. And it is kind of cool. So thank you so much for what you've done to the country, to our communities, to a little museum here in Burien, and how you contributed to our stories. We got a few minutes left. Any last thought, any last comment you'd like to share more about what makes you you? You can you can tap into any topic that you want, but I think that more about you, who you are, makes me feel that people should be more interested on it. So, yeah.
I'm speechless when it comes to who makes me you, because I'm not always the same person I was before. I learned from my mistakes, as well as my adventures and successes, and those influence who I am today. Right now, you can tell who I am by looking at all the activities I am. I play cribbage once a week with my neighbor, who there's at least 8 to 9 of us all meet, and we're not always the same people. I'm involved in my community. I talk to people. I vote. I not only vote, I tell people to do their research. I don't tell them how to vote, but they do need to do their research. Those things, my actions speaks much louder than my words.
And that's what I like about you, is that it's all about so many people can say so many things, a lot of statements, a lot of documents, a lot of, things that is great, it's beautiful, you like it, but then the actions at the end of the day is like what it makes it real. That one makes it like, okay, yes, you're saying this is what's happening, and then that connection. And so I'm just really happy and grateful that you had the time to do this today, and that allow us to get to know more about you. I know that as the time passes, that we will hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers here, that we continue to collaborate with each other and have more things in here, in any format, presentations, books, exhibits, radio. I mean, this is for everyone, and this is for us to stay. And I mean, what I mean by stay is our purposes that goes beyond one generation. The purposes that we can preserve the stories, and then being able to move on from one generation to the next. And then reflect. And you're right. Every single moment we change, we are not the same person. What makes us us is a very complex question. I have been asking that question. Everyone reacts differently when I ask that. What makes you you? And so one of the reasons why I say that is that immediately some people say, well, you're Mexican, and that's who you are. It's like, no, I'm Mexican. My Mexican label is really that small. I'm way more than that. And so be able to see that we have more layers on each other, that we are a big, giant, beautiful mosaic. with a lot of pieces. And so when I ask that question is, okay, show me a side of you, you know, that it's not just about one or two or three labels that we all put each other, either gender, either age, or sexual orientation, or whatever. It's all about, you know, you're a veteran. And then it's like, I love that.
Yeah.
And so once again, thank you for joining us today.
One more thing.
Go for it.
I divulge that I speak English, obviously, and Spanish, but also German and French.
Wow.
And I'm losing my French because I don't get a chance to use it that often, but there's a German store here that every time I walk in there, we start talking in German. So
that's cool. Would you want to say something in German or in any other language that not English? You want to say bye in any of those languages?
Auf Wiedersehen.
Oh, what language is that? German?
German.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, just check his work and any other platforms that he just shared. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM.
We envision ourselves sitting at a round table where no one is the leader and stories are heard respectfully, regardless of gender, age, sexual orientation, disabilities, or ethnicity. We want to embrace our differences and similarities. We are creating a place where visitors can connect with the stories and each other. Our mission is, we collect, preserve, and tell the stories of the Highline region and its people. We want to extend our mission outside the walls of the museum. Our Highline Voices represents us all, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and uniting to cultivate our future. This project allows us to reach out to demographics who might be unable to visit the museum. People with disabilities, low-income families, people who don't trust museums, and more. In partnership, we are launching a locally programmed new radio station at the museum, featuring recorded and live Highline's heritage, history, culture, arts, and more. Are you interested in sharing your story? Email director@highlinemuseum.org.